Summer's going well. Obviously, it's good to have a little downtime at the end of the season to spend some time with your family. I got a chance to go back up to Boston to see my brother and mom, so it's always good to get that out of the way early in the summer. And it's hard to believe that the 21st season is about 4.5 months away.
It was a little bit of an emotional start to the summer too, especially for your hometown in Boston with the Boston Marathon bombings. And I know we participated in the 5K here in Charleston, but you went home, and I believe your wife was mentioning you were staying pretty close to where all the events happened. So it had to be kind of an emotional return for you to see.
Yeah, we actually stayed in Copley Square, which is right around the corner from Boylston Street where the bombs went off, and we actually could see the makeshift memorial that people have made right there on Boylston Street, as well as walking up and down Boylston Street while we were home. And it was kind of surreal to think that something so awful had happened right there in that area. But when we were there, things seemed to be getting back to normal. There was a lot of people taking pictures and walking up and down Boylston Street, staring at the two specific spots where the bombs went off, and it was good to be home. I miss home at sometimes, and it's been about a year since I've been home, so it was good to go home and walk the streets of Boston and see family and friends, and the weather was actually beautiful as well. So it was a very, very good trip.
It seems to be a little bit more of a spirited return for you as well, and just seeing how the town and how everyone's reacting post all that, all the trauma and everything. Especially with our NHL affiliate, the Boston Bruins, it almost seems like it's an emotional charge into the playoffs or now into the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's kind of a nice response to everything, and I know it puts a lot of pride for you being from there.
No, it does. I was able to go to one of the games. I went to Toronto versus Boston, Game 1 there, and it seemed as if the Bruins, the Red Sox, the Celtics at the time were giving people a chance to kind of forget about what happened for that 2.5, 3 hours. Boston Strong T-shirts everywhere. People just so super excited about the Bruins in the playoffs. And at the time that the Celtics were in the playoffs, the Red Sox obviously had just started their season, and it was on a homestand as well when we were home. So it was good to see that the city was really alive, and people were in the process of not forgetting, but obviously moving forward and working as a whole and trying to regroup and move forward.
Well, now you've returned to South Carolina and putting all your focus back on the Stingrays. Certainly it's been a quiet summer so far for South Carolina, but I know one thing that's really been on your plate a lot and something you've been working on has been working on the schedule for the 2013-14 season. How has that been coming along? I know it's been a couple of weeks that we're going to expect to see it, but I know it's been a busy time trying to arrange everything and get those dates locked down.
Yeah, it always is. We start the process in early January. We pick some dates. We go over some dates with the Coliseum that won't be available for this upcoming season. Then we send those dates into the ECHL, and they send it off to the gentleman who does the schedule. I got the first draft last week. But as you alluded to earlier in the conversation, with Trenton being out, there's an odd amount of teams in the East right now. So we're trying to switch some dates. We're trying to appease our home schedule as well as other teams, Greenville, Gwinnett, Orlando teams in our division. So right now we're working on actually the second draft. I liked parts of the first draft. It had us actually playing about 24 games on Fridays and Saturdays. The only part of the schedule that I really didn't like was the very few Sunday games that we had, and we had a whole lot of Tuesday and Wednesday games, and as we know, those aren't the games that we really want. So right now, I think they're trying to work on the schedule. They're working closely with Florida, with Greenville, with Gwinnett, and Orlando as well, so we can all come to an agreement and all have a fair schedule based on home dates and great dates.
Talking about the Trenton organization, they announced pretty much right at the beginning of the playoffs that they were not going to be going into this season, that they were going to shut down the doors and possibly come back the following season, depending on how things go with their ownership group. But you mentioned having an odd amount of teams. Does that make things more difficult, less difficult as far as trying to schedule everything? They're not in our division, but I know it affects their division opponents, which can affect us. So it's just kind of a trickle-down effect. But how difficult is
it? It does, because looking at the schedule, there was a weekend or two that we actually weren't even playing any games. So it does throw a little kink into it a little bit, not a whole lot. But obviously, with an even amount of teams, it means an even amount of games, and everyone can play on a certain night. The biggest part of the schedule is obviously the building availabilities, not only for ourselves, but for other teams. And when you're looking at a schedule, like I was trying to switch some dates the other day, Spencer and I were going over it, and we were like, well, why can't we play this Tuesday on this Tuesday? And then you go look, and Greenville would have been playing the 4-and-4 nights, and then Gwinnett's all the way up in Evansville, and they're on their northern trip, and Orlando's doesn't have their building. So, having an odd amount of teams is makes it difficult a little bit, but not a whole lot. It's more of the building availabilities and where teams are when we're at home, and where we are on the road when teams are at home. So, trying to have it all cohesively mesh is more difficult than people probably think.
Outside of the ECHL and the Trenton situation, we all saw movement in the American Hockey League as well as the SPHL and the Central Hockey League as well. The American Hockey League, Houston and Peoria lost their organizations. Houston moving to Iowa, and Peoria, they're trying to find a home at the moment. And then in the SPHL, they actually absorbed a couple of teams. Peoria is going to join that, as well as Bloomington from the Central Hockey League. So it seems like teams around the ECHL and leagues around the ECHL are expanding a little bit. They're improving a little bit. Is that something that has been in conversation with maybe you and some of the ECHL officials, maybe some of the other team presidents, just as how these leagues are starting to expand and ultimately kind of dotting around our markets a little bit?
I haven't really talked to anyone much about it, but like yourself, I've noticed it, Joey. And, that's the goal of our league, too, is to grow. I think it's good for the overall sport of hockey that, we have, other teams going in certain cities. And hopefully it improves the quality of play. I can tell you, and from watching our games, that we are the second best league next to the AHL and the NHL. The SPHL does offer a good product, but not quite as as strong from a competitive standpoint and a talent standpoint as probably the ECHL. And that's not a knock against the SPHL. It's the same for our league as as applies to the AHL. But it is good, I think, for the overall sport of hockey that some places like Peoria, who had an AHL team, may have an SPHL team and an AHL team, or just one or the other. It's good that I know everyone's excited about hockey to go back in Iowa. It's good, but I think we're collectively more concerned about the growth and development of our league. We do, have our annual meetings next month in Vegas. Be going out there on a Monday, and we have about 3 days of Board of Governors meetings to kind of assess, the season, how specific teams did in their markets, what's on tap for future growth. I know there is future growth planned. It's just confidential right now where those cities are going to be. And it's just, it's a cycle. When the season ends, you're a little bit, angry because you lost. And as a week goes by, that anger kind of, subsides a little bit, and then you kind of breathe, and then the dust kind of settles, and guys leave town, and you get a time to sit back and analyze, certain parts of our organization, and it has been 6 weeks, and it tends to be a little slower in April and May when you're not playing. We all know that. The longer you go into the playoffs, the more interested there is in the team. But I can tell you that the sales staff is doing good. We cracked the top 10 in the league. We're trying to meet with the Coliseum and Center Plate to go over some new and fresh ideas or specials that may get some more people into the building. It's not official yet, but I would assume that at some point during this season they will be building the International Boulevard terrace, which is going to mirror the Montague Terrace, but that's to improve the overall concessions and flow of things at the Coliseum. So for the most part, it's back to normal in here. We're trying to improve in all aspects. We're trying to get more butts in the seat. We're trying to tweak our team a little bit as for the ice for next year, and it's just it's part of the process. It's hard to believe that it is almost June 1st, and you got June, July, August, and September. The next thing you know, October 1st, the guys will be back here at training camp. We'll be back at the Ice Palace, and we're opening up our 21st season probably sometime in the 18th or 19th range, 25th, 26th of October.